This canyon is one of the most extreme landscapes imaginable. Sheer cliffs drop into a vast valley, making any form of connection incredibly difficult. But this is exactly where a bridge will be built. Before construction can even begin, engineers must understand the terrain, measuring distances, studying the rock, and identifying where the structure can safely stand.
This is where the Huajiang Canyon Bridge will be built, across one of the deepest and most challenging terrains imaginable.
Everything starts with precision, because once this begins, there's no room for error.
To connect both sides, everything here has to be built in midair. Before anything can be built across the Huajiang Canyon, the rock itself has to be secured, because everything will depend on these anchor points.
The rock itself has to be made reliable. Deep into the cliff faces, holes are drilled and reinforced with steel anchors, locking unstable layers into place. These anchors will carry enormous forces later on. Dust, debris, and wind make the work even more difficult. This stage is invisible once the bridge is complete, but it's one of the most critical because everything that follows depends on the strength of the mountain itself.
You won't see most of this later, but this is what holds everything in place across the Huajiang Canyon. This is where the load from the Huajiang Canyon Bridge will transfer into the mountain. Whew, everything starts from these foundations.
With the cliffs secured, the next step is creating a base strong enough to hold the structure. Rock surfaces are cut, shaped, and leveled. Reinforced concrete blocks are formed and poured directly into the mountain, tying into the anchored rock beneath.
All the forces from the bridge will pass through here into the rock.
These foundations are designed to transfer massive loads safely into the terrain. For the first time, something permanent begins to appear, a clear starting point for what will rise above.
These towers will climb hundreds of meters. Everything above the canyon will depend on them.
From these foundations, the first vertical elements emerge. Steel reinforcement extends upward, and concrete is poured in stages, forming tall pylons that will eventually support the bridge. Each section is built carefully, layer by layer, growing higher with every cycle. What was once just a cliff edge is now becoming a structural system, reaching upward into open space.
They're building straight up into the sky. These towers will carry the entire span across the Huajiang Canyon. At this height, wind, balance, and precision become just as important as the structure itself.
As the pylons grow taller, the challenge increases. Work shifts higher above the ground, where wind and height add new risks. Specialized climbing formwork systems allow construction to continue vertically, lifting the build platform as the structure rises. Day and night, concrete and steel extend the towers further into the sky.
Everything from this point is built in mid-air, suspended above the canyon.
The scale becomes overwhelming. These towers will soon carry everything across the canyon. With the towers complete, the project finally begins to stretch across the canyon. Light pilot lines are sent from one side to the other, followed by stronger cables pulled into place. These cables are anchored at the top of the towers and tensioned carefully. They form the framework that will support the bridge in mid-air.
This is the first piece of the Huajiang Canyon Bridge actually hanging in mid-air, and it's only the beginning.
For the first time, there's a visible connection forming across the void, but the gap is still wide open.
They're getting closer, but closing that final gap is the hardest part of the entire build.
The two sides begin to approach each other. Each new segment reduces the gap, but the closer they get, the more precise everything must be. Wind, tension, and alignment all have to be controlled perfectly. Even a small error could throw off the entire structure. The space between both sides becomes smaller and smaller, building tension toward a single critical moment. Finally, the last segment is lifted into place. Suspended high above the canyon, it is carefully aligned between both sides. When the edges meet, the structure becomes one continuous span for the first time. Bolts are secured, joints are tightened, and the cables adjust to carry the full load. What was once two separate structures is now a single bridge crossing the entire canyon. With the span complete, the surface is built for use. Layers are added to protect the structure and create a smooth roadway. Asphalt is laid and compacted, guardrails are installed, and expansion joints allow the bridge to move safely under changing conditions. The raw structure begins to transform into something functional, a path that vehicles will soon travel across. Every system needed for safe operation is installed.
Now that the Huajiang Canyon Bridge is connected, it's being transformed into a road people can actually use. Every detail here is about safety, especially at this height. The Huajiang Canyon Bridge is built. Now everything has to be tested before it can open.
Lighting is added along the entire length, cables are protected, and sensors are placed to monitor movement and stress. Engineers inspect every detail, ensuring nothing has been overlooked. Even the smallest component matters here, because this structure must perform reliably under real-world conditions. Before opening, the bridge is put under controlled stress. Heavy vehicles are positioned across the span to simulate real loads. Sensors measure how the structure responds, tracking movement and stability. Every reading is analyzed. Only when everything performs exactly as expected can the bridge be cleared for use. This is where construction proves itself.
Everything is in place. The Huajiang Canyon Bridge is ready.
It's all stable? Stable? Readings are within limits? Confirmed. Excellent.
From both sides of the canyon, it's now one continuous path. The Huajiang Canyon Bridge is now open and doing exactly what it was built for.